Nigeria's economy has been navigating a complex terrain of fiscal and monetary challenges in 2023. Amidst rising inflation, exchange rate volatility, and limited access to finance, the government took steps to address these issues. However, these measures have also sparked controversies and questions about their effectiveness. Although many analysts think the policies are in order, the immediate negative impact cannot be wished away. I am joined by Oladipo Ajayi, the head, Fixed Income and Forex, Chapel Hill Denham Securities. He joins me virtually. Hi, thank you for joining me today, Oladipo.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much, Professor, for having me.
All right, so let's begin with some of the fiscal policies that shaped the year 2023, talking about whether it is the budget priorities to the tax reforms and even the debt management. So let's begin with the one that probably stood out for you before we then, begin to talk about these things in detail.
Of course, I think the one that will stand out for anybody would be the subsidy removal because everybody felt the impact. So, and I think that's actually what actually stood out for me, subsidy removal and basically the harmonization of the FX window. I think that those are the key two policies that I think have stood out for me in the year 2023.
All right, talking about that, I'd like us to probably start with the fiscal policies before we get into the monetary policies. You mind, talking about some of the things, the tax reforms?
For fiscal policy, I think I will start with the tax reform. When we talk about subsidy removal, I will say subsidy removal is never a monetary policy duty. It's more of fiscal policy than a monetary policy. Because what it means is it's about the expenditures and revenue of the government. It simply means that the government has been over laboring its expenses by actually taking up the payment of subsidy, and that's for a long time. You and I know that there has been a burden on the government, and the decision to actually share the weight is actually a great one. Of course, it was not palatable to the people. And secondly, I will also talk about the tax reform, and I think it's a very good one. I'm sure when the government actually picked Taiwo to actually head the committee to look at into the reform, a lot of people are excited, knowing fully well that it's one of the people to reckon with in that industry. And they came out with a big document where they actually highlighted some of the problems that we're currently going through as a country. They also spoke around the fact that the key thing that's been affecting development in Nigeria is more of multiple tax system, where an individual is paying almost the same level, paying tax, maybe up close to 6 different taxes on the same transactions, and they have reviewed that that doesn't make any sense, and that one way or the other will actually affect businesses rather than allow businesses to thrive. And at the end of the day, it will actually lead to where we are currently. And it's actually a laudable one that the government is already looking at implementing some of the things mentioned in the document. And I think that's one of the things that actually stood up for me in the year 2023.
All right, you've talked about these two things. Again, on the tax reforms, I remember we had a chat with the committee chairman, and he was saying something about, they are having conversations with the subnationals to get the agreement so they can harmonize, the tax process and all of that. Talk to us. What do you think about that, really? A situation where we're able to get the buy-in of the subnationals, so everybody sort of aligns, and so the collection is done once, but then there is a system that makes it trickle down to the other arms of government, or, well, the other places with tiers of government where it should be. Let's talk about that a little.
I think the problem we have is the collection of tax in this country. In a situation whereby you have this federal government collecting tax on a particular business line, and also the state government and the same industry collecting tax, and also the local government also want to generate revenue from tax collection, and one way or the other they are collecting tax from such business. And the decision to say, okay, let's get a buy-in of some of these more subnational companies. Like, okay, this is the modality. Let's get your buy-in. And now, one thing is that in a situation whereby you sign a bilateral agreement with people around things, it's easier for people to want to hold their side of the bargain. And I think that's one of the things he was trying to actually mention in that regard. He was trying to talk about multinational companies coming around to say, okay, we are okay with this. and okay, this we feel that we can do this better, we feel that we can tweak this, and at the end of the day, if both parties now agree to that, it becomes something that will be very effective because they know that from the get-go they actually get themselves committed to that, and that's one of the reasons why I feel that implementation of this policy will actually yield positive results, knowing fully well that all stakeholders are actually considered while actually reviewing the problem that's actually currently affecting the industry, and also getting their take on the way they feel that we can actually move it forward. And when you now look at things from the fact that all stakeholders are also contributory factor in the documentation and or in the implementation of the policy, it simply means that the result thereafter will be actually be a positive one.
Well, many Nigerians actually have a particular interest in debt management, beyond talking about taxation, which of course to a very large extent, looking at what the committee is doing, a lot of persons will say this is good. And at the end of the day, we're looking forward to something good. I mean, they've had the first report, which is the quick win. We're looking forward to the next and then the implementation. But then talking about debt management, some persons are particularly interested in it. I don't know if it is the same with you, but then what would you say about, debt burden of Nigeria so far, and then the DMO's management of the nation's debt in the year 2023?
Well, one thing for me, I will actually split 2023 into two segments. I will split it pre this government and post this government. And you and I know that pre this government at the time the DMO need to actually bring the debt, the ways and means obligations to the central bank, need to bring it onto our debt profile. And at that particular point in time, I think we brought in about 22.7 trillion onto our debt profile. And that's one of the things that actually jacked up our debt profile from around 30 something trillion to about 50 something trillion. I mean the local debt. And also on the foreign side, the FX debt, also the harmonization of the FX window, which also not actually lead to repricing our debt from the 470 that more like the dollar exchange rates at that particular point in time, and to where we are currently. That actually now pushed our foreign debt in terms of naira value to about 30 something trillion, and in total we are around 80 something trillion now. And for me, I don't think we are totally off when you look at current debt profile. And of course, most analysts, myself inclusive, don't think that debt to GDP ratios is a potent way to actually judge whether an economy is doing very well in terms of their debt sustainability. But it will also be unwise to actually feel that that indices does not in any way actually contribute or gives a picture of what's currently happening. When you look at the debt to GDP ratio, of course, we feel that we are in good hands because we are currently around 40% levels, and that is still one of the best in Africa or globally as well, if you look at it from that perspective. But the main concern for me is the cost of servicing that debt to the revenue. Our revenue generation capacity wasn't that strong, and as a result of that, our debt to GDP, sorry, our cost of servicing debt to revenue actually in Q1 we actually touched around 98%. So what that simply means is that 98% of the revenue generated in Q1 was actually used to actually service debt. And when you look at it from that perspective, it means that we are not doing something right. And that's why the new government, when I was looking at the budget, their target is to bring cost of servicing debt to about 45%. Of course, it's still not very competitive when you look at South Africa of around 20%, when you look at Egypt of around 20%. However, when you compare that with where we are coming from, a 98% of revenue generated as cost of servicing debt, of course, I think we are still better. So for me, I think that 2023, we had a lot of debt burden when you compare to our capacity to generate revenue. But I think post this government, I think a lot of things changed because at that particular point in time, there's no burden for subsidy again, and also the harmonization of FX window also brought about a better level of revenue generating capacity from the government. Even for example, in the month of June, there was a time where we had about close to about a little over 2 trillion
About
as sharing for
1.9
fact
trillion
that
thereabout.
the government, yeah.
I was saying in total about 1.9 trillion.
Yeah. But the government needs to actually decide to actually keep 1 trillion of it in an infrastructure fund. So it tells you that one way or the other, our revenue generating capacity has improved. And when you look at the budget for 2024, we have a target of a bit over 17 trillion as revenue generate expected revenue for this year. So it simply means that we are improving on the parts of revenue generating
Okay, I like that.
capacity.
All right, I like that you're already talking about revenue generation. So, I mean, let's just go all out on it now. What do you make of the strides that were taken in the area of revenue generation this particular year? I mean, we saw some form of attention being paid to non-oil revenue generation in this regard. So let's begin with that. Just let's wrap this part up so we can move on.
Yeah, if you look at the what actually pushed the revenue generating capacity up is just the removal of subsidy. It simply means that that huge burden of subsidy payment actually left the book of the government, and also the FX revenue that is normally translated at 470 is now translated at 770 naira thereabouts, and that simply means that the government is now having more revenue in that regard. And also with the tax reform also, the government is also trying to use that window as an opportunity to actually further drive up their revenue generating capacity. And I think it's a very good one. So also, if you look at the oil and gas sector as well, I think we did a bit better post this government, because we are beginning to see sanity in the Niger Delta region. And also, currently we are around 1.5 million barrels per day, and that's almost as good as what's the current quota that OPEC has given to us. Although the budget for 2024 actually shows that we are looking to produce more than that, but what we are currently having as our quota is simply about 1.5 million. My concern is that with Nigeria decide to toe the line of Angola to actually leave OPEC so as to actually be able to produce capacity, or will Nigeria maintain the 1.5 million barrels that's actually given to us by OPEC as daily production? That is left on the table of our leaders to actually determine.
All right, so monetary policies now basically which one stood out for you? I mean, I can almost guess, but let's have you say the monetary policies and what you think about the monetary policies that were employed during the course of the year.
Well, for me, I think what we were I mentioned it, the FX window harmonization. I'm telling you, that's just it, because imagine we were at 470 official rate, and we woke up to the president speaking, and at the end of the day, the president says that subsidy is gone, and the next thing, FX window is has been harmonized, and the next trading day we find market adjusting from the 470 that you actually left a day before the swearing, and to around 750, 770 levels. And that stood out for me because one way or the other, we saw the impact of that in the books of most companies. When you look at most manufacturing companies in the year 2023, you see a lot of them coming to booking FX loss in their books. And you see Dangote Sugar, you saw Dangote Cement, and also Nestle, Unilever, almost all manufacturing companies actually booked FX loss, because most of them were actually carrying obligations at plus 70. And by the time market was repriced, and it simply means that it becomes a bigger burden to them, and it was a big one for most of these companies. But on the flip side, of course, market will always say we always say the market is zero sum game. As some people are actually clamoring that it was negative for them. We saw what happened to the books of most banks. We saw UBA, we saw Access Bank, we saw Zenith, we saw GT Bank. Most of them posting huge FX gains in their book. For the year. So it's been more like a catalyst for me that actually for the market for the year 2023.
I don't want to get into some other things, looking at the real sector, how it's affected the real sector and all of that, because I've been pressed for time now. So let's look at the drive to reduce inflation during the course of the year. What for you were the factors that contributed to inflation? What is your view of the way, it was handled so far, or it's been handled anyway?
Yeah, for me, I think we are less aggressive, and I mean the monetary policy guys. They were less aggressive, and I will take a clue from where we opened. At the beginning of the year, the monetary policy rate actually opened at 16.5 at the beginning of the year, and based on my this thing, we closed the year at around 18.75. So it simply means that. Between the month of January to the month of July, where we had the last monetary policy committee meeting, we raised rates by about 225 basis points. But when we look at inflation actually opened the year at around 21.82%, and as at the month of November, we actually closed at 28.2%. That's about 638 basis points. It means that inflation has moved more than the rate at which we increase rate to actually copy inflation. Of course, there's two sides to the coin. There's a side that we need to look at it from the fact that the current inflation actually affecting Nigeria as a country is two-sided. There's the demand side, and also there's the supply side. Of course, the supply side is the key thing that actually, because the issue of insecurity in the country is a cause for concern. Most farmers could not actually access their farm even at the time of harvest. Most of them need to actually pay bandits so as to be able to access their farm. And also, we saw what happened around the month of September, thereabouts, when there was huge flood in most of these northern states, and that's where most of the agricultural activities is being carried out. And that also actually affects the level of productivity in that segment of the market. And so when you look at it in all, I don't think we did enough to actually curb the rising of inflation.
All right, Oladipo, let me come in here. Let me come in here. So in closing, I mean, looking forward, what do you expect government to do to be able to address some of those things?
I think I expect the government to be a bit more aggressive in attending to some of these issues. When you look at
and what happens to balancing? I mean, are we going to get a balance anytime soon? If you're saying you want government to continue being aggressive, what about the people?
So this is what I'm trying to say. And okay, let's look at it from this angle. Look at what happened. The Fed. There was a time that a lot of people were actually questioning the level at which the Fed. They were actually very aggressive at a particular point in time. But we see the result now. And the Fed was already telling you that in the year 2024, they expect to actually do up to like 3 rate cuts in the year 2024. And that is the same line that I felt we should have told. We should have told the line of being aggressive without mobbing liquidity from the system, not ensuring so that one way or the other that will reduce the demand side of the coin, and also the supply side of coin that I mentioned. The government needs to work on the level of insecurity in the country. The government needs to find a way to ensure that farmers are able to access their farm. The government needs to ensure that the seedling that most of these farmers are actually planting, they are actually very good seedling, so as to give us good results. And also, infrastructure is also another part of. We've seen a situation whereby in this country where it takes farmers up to 10 days to transport goods from the north down south here. You and I imagine most of these goods, they are perishable goods. You understand that maybe close to about 30 to 40 or 50% of the goods would have been bad before they actually get to the marketplace. So the government needs to work around the infrastructure as well. And I feel that if we do most of these things, one way or the other, we'll start seeing inflation actually dropping. Of course, going to year 2024, we expect base year to kick in, and we expect inflation to start dropping.
All right, thank you so much. I was going to say, add to that the numerous numbers of illegal taxes they have to pay, while on it. So that's a whole lot, I know. But thank you so much for your thoughts on the show today. Oladipo Ajayi, thank you for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, do have a great day. Well, you had the conversation talking about the monetary and fiscal policies that were undertaken by this particular administration, and of course the administration before it. Well, press for time. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll bring you international headlines. Stay with us.